Okay, so today we're diving into something that feels almost like, a taboo subject, heart disease.
Yeah,
It's the leading cause of death in
that's
America,
right.
yet it often feels like we shy away from really talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're going deep into why that is,
Okay.
and more importantly, what we can actually do about it.
Right.
I've
Yeah.
got some really fascinating research to unpack here.
Yeah.
And trust me, some of these insights are pretty mind-blowing.
Are you ready?
Get this. Almost 400,000 Americans die every year from coronary heart disease.
It's a lot.
That's one person every 83 seconds.
Wow.
What's even crazier is that a lot of the material we're looking at argues that this is, get this, largely preventable
Okay.
and not with some, fancy new drug,
Right.
but with something we all have, a fork.
Interesting.
So let's dig into that, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
If we can prevent this just by changing what we put on our plates, why aren't we shouting it from the rooftops?
That's a great question. What's interesting is that the research frames heart disease almost like this invisible enemy,
Okay.
silently wreaking havoc.
Right.
We don't see it coming often until it's too late.
That's a really good point. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not like a heart attack announces itself with flashing red lights,
That's what
right?
you're saying.
You could be going about your day feeling totally fine and then boom.
Exactly.
And it makes you wonder how much of our perception or misperception of heart disease is tied to this silent nature.
Exactly. And this ties into the core of what we're discussing today, atherosclerosis. It's essentially a slow, gradual buildup of plaque in your arteries.
Got it.
Imagine your arteries as these pipelines delivering blood to your heart.
Okay.
Now, picture those pipelines slowly narrowing over time because of this buildup. That's atherosclerosis in a nutshell.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah.
So this plaque is what, cholesterol-rich gunk?
Yeah.
Slowly clogging up the pipes.
It's a good way to put it. And the scary part is, for a lot of people, there are no symptoms.
Right.
Until one of those pipes gets completely blocked, leading to a heart attack. This is why understanding the role of prevention is so crucial.
It's like a ticking time bomb that you might not even know is there.
Right.
This is probably why the research refers to it as a silent killer then.
Yeah.
I used to think heart disease was just a normal part of getting older.
Yeah.
You hit a certain age, your body starts to wear down, and that's just how it goes, right?
Right.
But the research here challenges that whole idea.
What's fascinating is that this research debunks that myth by digging into historical data.
Okay.
For instance, there's the China study, which looked at heart disease rates in rural China.
Right.
They found incredibly low rates of heart disease in certain areas where people ate a significantly different diet than what we're used to in the West.
Okay, so different diet, different outcomes. That makes sense, but how different are we talking?
Yeah.
What were they eating that seemed to make such a big difference?
That's where it gets really interesting. We're talking about diets that were almost entirely plant-based, very low in animal products, and high in fiber, and their cholesterol levels.
Yeah.
Way lower compared to those eating a more modern Western diet.
Hold on. Are you saying that, the food we eat can actually impact our cholesterol levels to that degree?
Yes.
That's kind of a big deal, right?
It is a big deal.
Yeah.
And it highlights just how powerful our dietary choices can be.
Right.
But the China study isn't the only piece of evidence here.
Oh?
This research also dives into studies from 1930s and 40s Africa, where heart disease was practically non-existent.
Wait, non-existent?
Yeah.
How is that even possible?
Right.
Were people just not, living long enough back then
Right.
to develop heart disease?
That's what's so fascinating. Researchers compared autopsies of people from these regions.
To those of Americans who died at the same age.
Okay.
The results were shocking.
Okay.
The rates of heart attacks were significantly lower
Yeah.
in the groups with drastically different diets, even though they lived to be the same age.
Okay, so something else is going on here.
Yeah.
If it's not just about age, it has to be about something in our environment or lifestyle, right?
Right.
That's contributing to this difference in heart disease rates.
Exactly.
And if it's environmental, then logically that means it's preventable.
Exactly. And this research points to a compelling piece of the puzzle here. Immigration.
Okay.
People who move from those low-risk areas to high-risk areas,
Okay.
adopting a more Western lifestyle and diet, see a significant increase in their likelihood of developing heart disease. Wow, that's a pretty strong argument for the impact of lifestyle factors,
Yeah.
especially diet. It's like
Yeah.
our environment, in this case the food environment,
Right.
is playing a direct role in shaping our health outcomes.
Right.
So what you're saying is that those low-risk areas
Hmm.
with their plant-based diets
Hmm.
were actually onto something.
It certainly seems that way.
Okay.
And this is where that idea of the fork as a weapon comes into play.
Right.
The research uses this powerful analogy
Yeah.
suggesting that just like sugary foods weren't available to damage our ancestors' teeth,
Right.
our modern diet introduces elements that our bodies just aren't designed to handle
Yeah.
over the long haul.
Right, right. I remember reading about that analogy.
Yeah.
It's funny how a simple comparison can suddenly make things click,
Right.
isn't it? It's like our bodies are stuck in the Stone Age,
Mm-hmm.
still wired for a hunter-gatherer diet,
Yeah.
but we're surrounded by, like, processed food and sugary drinks.
That's a great way to put it. And the research highlights a fascinating study
Okay.
comparing Americans to Ugandans.
Okay.
It showed drastically lower heart attack rates in the Ugandan population,
Yeah.
whose diet was primarily plant-based,
Okay.
compared to Americans who were consuming a more modern Western diet.
Okay, that's a pretty stark contrast.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what if we could, like, turn back the clock on our diets?
Mm-hmm.
What if we could go back to eating more like our ancestors,
Right.
filling our plates with, like, whole foods and plant-based options?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the research seems to suggest that even small shifts in that direction can have a big impact on our heart health.
Okay.
You don't need to become, marathon running vegans overnight,
Right.
but incorporating more plant-based meals into our weekly routines,
Mhm.
choosing whole grains over refined ones,
Right.
cutting back on sugary drinks.
Right.
These seemingly small steps can add up to significant benefits for our heart health.
It's like you said earlier, progress over perfection.
Exactly. It's about making, sustainable changes that work for you, not about aiming for some unrealistic ideal. Every step towards a healthier plate is a step in the right direction.
This has been eye-opening, honestly.
Yeah.
It makes you realize we have more control over our heart health than we might think.
Right.
But it also makes you wonder if heart disease is preventable, and the evidence certainly seems to suggest that it is. Why aren't we doing more to address it as a society? I mean, this is the #1 killer in America.
That's the big question, isn't it? And there's no easy answer. Part of it might be the power of, the status quo. The standard American diet is so ingrained in our culture
Right.
that it can be tough to, break free from those habits, even when we know they're not serving us.
It's like we're stuck in a rut, almost like those grooves on a vinyl record.
Right.
Once they're etched in, it's hard to, like, change the tune.
Exactly. And then there's the influence of the food industry, which
Yeah.
doesn't always prioritize, public health over profit.
Right.
But I also think there's an element of, denial at play. It's easier to kind of push those long-term consequences to the back of our minds if we're not, experiencing any symptoms.
Out of sight, out of mind, as they say.
Right.
We often don't address a problem until it's staring us right in the face.
That's why I appreciate the call to action in this research.
Yeah.
It's not just presenting information, it's urging us to be proactive about our heart health, even if we feel perfectly fine right now.
So where do we even start? What are some, like, concrete steps we can take?
Don't wait for a wake-up call in the form of a medical diagnosis.
Right.
There are so many, incredible resources available today, books, documentaries, even apps
Oh, yeah.
that offer, evidence-based information on heart-healthy living.
So much of this comes down to education, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Becoming, like, informed consumers, both of the information out there
Right.
and of the food we choose to put into our bodies.
Absolutely. Learn about what nourishes your heart, try out new recipes, find ways to make, healthy choices enjoyable.
Okay.
And remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about making gradual, sustainable changes over time.
This deep dive has given me a lot to think about.
Good.
That fork as a weapon analogy really, really stuck with me.
Yeah.
It makes you realize the power we have, like, 3 times a day,
Right.
to either nourish our bodies or slowly chip away at our health.
It's a powerful image, and it speaks to the fact that we're not just, passive bystanders in this. We have agency. We have choices.
Right.
And those choices have the potential to change the course of our health and maybe even our lifespan.
So as we wrap up here, I want to leave you with this. If heart disease is preventable, and again, the evidence really does suggest that it is what responsibility do we have as individuals and as a society to take action? It's a question worth pondering, maybe as you enjoy your next meal.